Hello and welcome to the quarterly Aptos webinar with Token Relations. I am Jacqueline Melinek, the founder and CEO, and I will be the one moderating this. Today, joining me is the Aptos Foundation SVP and Head of Ecosystem, Ash Pumpati, the CreatorFi co-founder, Jack Cameron, and Runa CEO and co-founder, Svit Vitsu. I hope I'm getting that correct.
It's fine, Svet. It's more easy.
Svet, okay, well, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Take two. No, okay.
I'll never
All right.
forget you.
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm excited to talk to you all.
Thanks
My
for
pleasure.
having us. There's no better place to be than right here, right now.
Exactly. So I hope everyone's tuning in. I'm sure they're trickling in. We got people coming in from a bunch of different parts of the live stream. So before we get started, I want to start with some background and context. Aptos has seen a number of new developments across all areas this past quarter, including integrations with Chainlink across the entire ecosystem, the stablecoin market cap reaching an all-time high of 1.63 billion, and Aptos's experience, which happened in Brooklyn, where I live, occurred on the network's 3-year mainnet anniversary. The team has also seen growth on the consumer side, so I'm excited to talk about that with Jack and Runa and, of course, Ash. But for starters, I want to talk to Ash, kind of as your seat as head of ecosystem. Holistically speaking, what has surprised you the most about how the ecosystem has actually evolved between now and when you first joined? Because it's been a bit of time right now. So I guess let's start there.
It's been a bit of time. No
It's
more
been a bit of
excuses
time.
as the new guy. But, I think since I started in the last year, we were pretty deliberate of what we felt was the building blocks of a healthy ecosystem for an L1, right? When you think about an L1, it's a permissionless network that's decentralized that can support a variety of new use cases. And when you're kind of immature as an ecosystem or even just as an L1 being in production, you have to really decide what is the type of environment or the type of businesses that can thrive on you uniquely, right? And I think before we even got to a thesis around that, we said, well, actually, there's something underground, which is how do we create a healthy DeFi ecosystem, right? So people can do not so much basic, but valuable things they do in crypto, right? Just to even put money somewhere, earn yield, or even trade. And we kind of terraformed all of that through native applications in the first 6 months, where we're very focused. And Chainlink actually was an amazing partner, which you mentioned, to go and ensure that they were integrated across all of our top DeFi protocols. In addition to bringing Aave online, which we are the first non-EVM chain for Aave to deploy on. And so I'd say the first kind of big push was basically have a healthy DeFi ecosystem. In parallel, it gave us the right to start thinking about next generation applications and founders that could uniquely thrive on Aptos. And when I mean unique, I mean in the sense that, I wouldn't be, or my team, or, Jack and Svit, we wouldn't be making the right decisions if we weren't betting on each other in terms of what respectively we could both bring an edge to, right? So what can we bring an edge to? We, as Aptos, were incubated at Meta for 3 years before we spun out, 2019 to 2022, right? And then we spun out in 2022, raised, and we've been in market for 3 years. That's 6+ years, right, of making our blockchain extremely fast, extremely secure, and built on the principles that it should be invisible infrastructure to power applications, enterprise or consumer, that have their own scaling principles. That's literally why we were built, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't provide an edge if we're trying to attract the same type of ecosystem that exists on other chains, right? Like a Solana or things like that. We can do it, we can try, but it's not really an edge. Where we have an edge is supporting scaling applications that demand, right, really cheap near zero fees, that demand high security, and want to abstract complexity completely away from their user because they need to scale. The moment they disrupt any of their user flow, their business is affected. Those are the types of companies that thrive. And what I would say is, I've been really surprised by how quickly those companies, right, whether it be Sviet and Runa, Jack now, who's just coming on to Aptos and has an amazing story to tell before that, but Pact Finance, KGen, Stan, these are all companies that are doing 8 figs, right, in ARR, but like are look completely different, right, than startups or companies building in crypto natively in other ecosystems, right? And
Mhm.
I've been really surprised at how quickly they've just found product market fit and they've been able to scale. And I think that is where the whole market is going. I think every chain is searching for a collection or a complexion of products, use cases, founders, companies that represent real world utility. And I've been really happy that we've kind of always been focused on that.
Yeah, maybe for Sweet and Jack as well. What would you say is your edge? And then also building off what Ash just said, do you kind of align with what he's saying? Is that why you decided to build on top of Aptos or work with them?
I can go first. Yeah, well, I think to Ash's point, I was actually, to give a little bit of background, I was a product development studio before I was what I'm doing now, and I spent probably 3 years building other people's startups on different chains, right? And the interesting thing I've always found with what makes a good L1, L2, whatever it is the intentionality of what you're doing, and your clear goals that you're setting. And I think to to Ash's point, and particularly the story that you're telling, to Ash's point, is that Aptos is very much so a chain like that, right? You guys have an amazing background, amazing history, as you're saying, being incubated in Meta, and then bringing that chain to mass consumers and focusing on a DeFi angle to begin with. And so that intentionality for us was really important, right? We make creators, make it easy for them to get access to capital. And so the two major questions for us at the end of the day is, how can we make that fast and efficient, and how can we not make it something that's a gimmick or even more difficult for them to execute against. And I give in this example, I have a very good friend who's a content creator, and I do streams with him on YouTube sometimes, and we talk about the fact that when he pays his employees, whether it's through Zelle or Venmo or Revolut, fees stack up. It's a real thing. You end up paying someone $150 an edit for you, and you're doing 4 or 5 edits a day. That is a real business case for crypto. And so when we looked at Aptos, obviously the reduction in fees immediately solved for that. And obviously then the intentionality of focusing on payments and payment infrastructure. And so ultimately, I think that's why we decided to come to Aptos, is that there's a direct alignment with what we're doing. And then from a storytelling point of view, I think, Ash speaks about this a bunch, is that the goal is consumer, right? And there's no
Mhm.
more better consumer category, at least in my opinion, than like the creator economy. And so we hope to work together to bring that to a focal point. But yeah, I hope that answers the question of why we picked Aptos and why we think it's a really good competitive edge.
For sure. All right. You're up.
Yeah, from our side, it's somehow from our background, we are coming directly from Web 2 background because we are quite powerful about entertainment world. Like we also own a couple of festivals and the top 3 globally festivals. And my opinion, our age, it's distribution and user experience. It's much efficient for us. Why? Because we already running a lot of like just imagine we have over 2 million users, but running over 165 events, and I think so 90% of the users even didn't know that they're using Web3 behind. And my opinion, this is the edge of us because it's the power of distribution. It's how easy to use. If you are noob in the Web3, you can use it. If not, you can export everything. Aptos, we choose, I think so. Most, I personally like it. Okay, technology, it's one thing, but my opinion, that the team is most great because we also spoke with many chains before to be sure what we selected, and the most efficient and most cool guys, how they answer it, how they go to parties and so on. It was the Aptos, my opinion. It was very nice, like from this point of view. Yeah, and why we choose Web3? Because exactly like Jake was saying, we want to save the fees, and for us, because we have so many transactions by the bank, And just imagine an if transaction, it's eating like 3% from each transaction. It's a lot, and these 3% go nowhere. It just goes to a Stripe or payment processor, whatever we are using, and this can be saved to Varuna or can be saved to organizers. That's why we choose to go to Web3.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
And Jacqueline, one thing I
Mhm.
want to jump in. Both of these gentlemen are being very humble about their roots
Yeah.
and the position
Go
of their
ahead, hype 'em up.
companies.
Yeah.
Hype them up, hype them up. I
Yeah.
mean, Sviat, like the amazing thing about Runa, right, is I come from the music industry, music tech space. I did 7.5 years at YouTube, and before that, 3.5 years at Spotify. And music and live events are the hardest industries to crack into as a startup. They are run by monopolies that
Yeah.
somehow get away with everything, and gangsters and mafias. I'm just telling you that, right? Even
Yeah.
YouTube was squeezed. Even Spotify was squeezed. And you have Sviet, who's building Runa, which is one of the biggest festival service providers in the world, right? Just saying that. Completely bootstrapped, started by them, and they're coming to Web3. Like they have tons of users, right? They're like a real world application that people need to go to a very significant portion, right, of live events. And they're leaning into Web3 because it's a better model for monetization. It's a better
Mhm.
model for retention. Jack, he mentioned kind of a little bit of what he did, right? But if you think about the people they've gotten behind them to finance the debt that they can then extend credit to the creators, the types of partners they have, and partner networks and deals with multi-channel networks that drive billions of views across platforms like Roblox and YouTube, right? To enable access to get them paid. I mean, these guys are like in the traditional business world huge, right? Like amazing startups, amazing foundation for growth, and they're betting on Web3 to drive that next level, right? And I think that's just something I want to say to hype them up a little bit. They're very humble, which I think is a good quality, but I don't have to be humble for them. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, on the consumer front for Runa, why did you kind of decide to go and launch the business on chain opposed to just going down the traditional methods, kind of building up what Ash said? And like, I mean, it's like the monopoly, but then it's also like everyone has just gone the same route, right? And so you kind of diverge from like the path that even the music or entertainment startups would go down, and you went down one that's probably less traveled, right? So how does that kind of benefit the business model more compared to other alternative avenues?
Yeah, for us, it's like let's say for us, it's most important is like we said, it's the payment, because somehow everyone, when we started to pitch about Verona, everyone was thinking that we are a ticketing solution, but we are not a ticketing solution.
Yeah.
We are the payment infrastructure for the big events. It's like when you're going to the best example is when you're going to the cinema, you're buying the ticket, but it's, I don't know, let's say $5, right? But when you're going to the cinema, you're buying the water, the burger, Minecraft toy, Coca-Cola, popcorn, and
It's
you're
expensive.
you're
Yeah.
spending 50 bucks. The same is also with events, the concerts, for saucer players, aqua parks, theme parks, the same. And for us, like I said, it was most important to come to blockchain exactly this, to speed up, to reduce the cost fees. It's most important. Plus to make a transparency everything. Why? When you're creating one big festival, for example, you're working over 100 suppliers, and this supplier needed to pay at the end, right? And if he's selling burgers, selling, normally in Web2 space, people what are doing? Export into the Google Excel or whatever, and you sold in that time, and nobody can check it if it's right, it's not right. And it's taken between 2 and 3 weeks after each festival just this report. And with blockchain, everyone who can check it, whatever they want, they can see it, and it will be super transparent. Yeah,
Mhm.
for us, it's mostly reason. And plus, if we are saying about the tickets, it's like secondary market for us. The first layer, it's not very important. But the second layer is very important. That meaning the second layer, when the tickets needed to be resolved, because many times it's a lot of scams, it's a lot of fake transactions and so on. Just imagine one client before Verona, he have one ticket was resolved 120 times, and just one guy passed the event, and 119 was just scammed. And here also blockchain is helping a lot, because you have this transition between marketplace, you can see who is the owner, you can transfer it, and so on and so on.
Yeah. Jack, what about for you? Does Sweet's responses kind of resonate with you, or are you seeing something different on your side with CreatorFi?
No, yeah, it definitely resonates with me. Like I think I was saying previously, like the fees are really big, use case or a real world problem to be solving for with crypto. I think actually the interesting thing about our kind of background is that we built CreatorFi as a solution for a client and then scaled it into a product. So Ash mentioned that we work with a lot of multi-channel networks. One of them is called Eula. Eula's actually co-owned by Mr. Beast and represents around 3,000 creators around the world. And they came to us and said, hey, like we want to give these creators USDC because they're already asking to borrow against their earnings. And then they want to use that money to reinvest in their business. But the moment they reinvest in their business, it gets chopped up by a bunch of different fees, right? So we were seeing very much so a similar thing here, which is that there's a business use case already out there for stable coins to be deployed directly to creators without having to force fit that onto the end user. And actually, interestingly enough, we offer both Wire and USDC, but the majority of people take USDC. So it's not even just us like force fitting it. It's really the end users actually want that, because to Sven's point, like the fees actually have an effect on the overall bottom line of a person's business in general. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all three of you now have brought up stablecoins, so I'm going to have to ask all of you about this too. Everyone's talking about stablecoins all the time. It's a massive narrative. Maybe from Ash's perspective, we could talk about it first for Aptos specifically. I know there's been a number of integrations. Aptos welcomes USD1 from World Liberty Financial in October, plus Paxos's USDG0, the omni-chain stablecoin this month. What do you think is kind of driving the surge of stablecoin deployments? And why are they choosing to work with Aptos? And then we will get into kind of the consumer side of it as well with you two.
So, in Web3, the digital dollar will always prefer to find the most efficient and economical path to do a job. And it will. And that uniquely puts us, again, at a great advantage or exemplifies our edge, right? When you have to transfer the same amount of value from here to there, and you have two or three choices, and one choice is 100x more expensive and 10x slower, what are you going to choose? You don't care. You're going to choose the one that's faster, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, we want to be, and I say this because it's not unchanged from where we started. We actually started as a network or backend infra at Meta to move a digital dollar across and in a permissionless way and in a borderless way across Meta's billion user app economy, right? And so this has always been why we've built the chain this way, because you start to power 100%, 50, 20% of global transactions through the digital dollar through Web3 rails, your blockchain better be really good, really, really good, and compete with centralized experiences in terms of speed and security, right? And so now it's not surprising to us, right? In terms of just us kind of being the chain where most of these stable coins are deploying, because power users are going to naturally select, right, when there's availability, and that's good for both parties, the issuer and us. I think what's going to be really interesting is the different use cases for these stable coins, right? Obviously, Jack and Svit are talking about payments. There's stable coins that are good for payments. There's also stable coins that are better for private credit. There are also stable coins that are good for yield bearing or revenue generation. And so seeing the ecosystem kind of flourish around these different categories is going to be really exciting. And for us, we want to eat up all the ones that matter, and we will.
Yeah. On the consumer side, do you guys see the biggest kind of value add being on the payment side? Or is there other areas where you could see like stablecoins really creating a users or people in the entertainment industry or something else or creators? I don't know.
Can I say something? And maybe I'll toss it to Jack. Our
Yeah.
industry has historically leveraged creators, and I might be controversial, or maybe people will support me as people who need to launch an NFT or create a shitcoin. Okay, sorry for my language.
Yep.
I think that is exactly the wrong way to leverage creators. The more durable and exponentially compounding in value way to leverage creators is put crypto in their pocket. Give them crypto to do the job they love already. That is the biggest aha to me in terms of like creator economy, stablecoins, and payments, and also why I like rushed to embrace Jack and the team, right, and Billy and their whole team. I mean, they're working out of our office right now, right here, is because that is the exact thing that YouTube did to pioneer the creator economy when they created the AdSense account. Every creator got an AdSense account on YouTube. That meant
Yeah.
when they monetized or there was revenue, there was money sent to that account. And then they were like, I'm here. I'm stuck here. You know what I mean? I think that is the exact same big multiplier effect. And I'm just calling out Jack here, right? Because that's what's going to be so exciting about their path.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. I think that's how you get the creator economy to stick on chain. I think as Ash is saying, like you take a step back and you look at as what he's saying around AdSense, right? Being able to be monetized for your content, but even beyond that, right? Like we see creators, creator brands have been a long thing, like a thing for a long time, but more than ever have they, kind of exploded. You see Prime, you see Feastables, you see Mr. Beast is like Lunchable competitor, but then you also see like smaller brands. I think I spoke about this on another Twitter space we did the other day, which is like Molly Bass, who's a Bon Appetit chef doing a very competitive mayonnaise company to Heinz, right? And the question that they have to ask themselves in these moments when they decide, hey, am I going to step into that space? Am I going to extend beyond my content? Is how do I finance that, right? And the question a lot of the times is, well, they go to maybe traditional venture arm and then they give up equity in it. And then, as Ash was alluding to, the music industry is always there to, chop up your music and your intellectual property. But the question that I think crypto solves really, really well is how do I get access to instant liquidity that's already mine? And that's where I think it's really interesting when it comes to crypto, which is right now we're just underwriting existing channel revenue, catalog revenue. But what happens when we apply technology in a really interesting way to underwrite the true value of what a creator is, their influence, their merchandise, all their social platforms together. And really, when you mix that with stable coins, you create a situation where creators, YouTubers, musicians, game developers can really get access to liquidity to build these brands that compete with some of the largest brands in the world while retaining ownership. And just like from a thesis point of view, I think that has the most alignment with crypto than any other thing I've seen in terms of stable coins being a use case for the creator economy. Is that ultimately, if you can give these creators the ownership over their businesses, over their channels, without having to take outside capital that might dilute them, you really not only just answered a use case for payments, but from a thesis point of view, you've really kind of tried to echo what we're all trying to do here from a crypto point of view, which is true decentralization. So I totally, echoing Ash, I agree that like when you put crypto in the hands of creators, you really end up with something quite special.
On Runa's side, when it comes to kind of like expanding with the 2 million users that you have, where do you think you could see the most demand with stablecoin integration?
What's interesting that I think so, like stable coins, it's more helping not the users, like who is, let's say, spending and go to parties and concert and so on, but it's more for organizers, because organizers need, like exactly Jack said, organizers, the creators need the liquidity, and they are lack of cash many times before the event. And honestly, like just think all the payment processor now, for example, if in special places like Dubai, Asia, if you're working with them and you are selling the tickets or selling merchandising, whatever, this liquidity you will not receive before the festival or before the concert. You'll receive after, when this festival is done. Why? Because if COVID has happened, we need to have the money to refund the users and so on. But imagine for the organizer who needs, like, let's say, one third is selling by the tickets by the pre-selling before the festival. It's a lot of lack of cash that need to be to use for production, for artists, and so on. And for example, when we are working in our festivals, we have over 250 artists just in 4 days, and all tier ones. We just spent over 10 million just for booking them. And if you don't have this cash, this stable coin and so on, will be dead. That's why also we are was moving very fast with the Rune infrastructure, because from our needs, we also create another infrastructure that is special for the organizers and so on. Yeah, cash, let's say liquidity, it's most important for organizers. And here it's coming also benefits for the users because they see better experience and so on and so on. And here I think so we can also speak a little bit with the Jack. I have a couple of ideas that we want to maybe implement. We was thinking with the Runa to implement it about the artists and credit them. And Jack, I think so we need to speak a little bit after this podcast.
You guys can
Oh, yeah.
talk right now. Yeah, come on, let's go. Make a deal.
I got a whiteboard here. I have a whiteboard.
Why? So why?
Yeah. This is actually a brainstorm.
No ideas?
instead. Yeah.
No,
No
100%.
ideas.
There we go. Yeah.
I definitely think that this is like a side note. I think there might definitely be some collaboration. Like just to give a little bit more context on Creator5, we mainly do provide credit to creators, but we're all focused on downstream revenue as well. So we're looking for ways to maximize revenue for the creators in our portfolio beyond just the YouTube. So primarily, I'm focused on music. So I do think like there is a big push around like ownership of fan membership or ticketing, and all those kind of use cases that are applied for artists. Especially, we actually fund distros and labels as well, like on the smaller side, and they might be looking for partners like yourself. So I would definitely like to chat and find a way to collaborate here.
Good.
There you go. Love
You
that.
see, this is the beauty of having an opinion and getting to work
Exactly.
with founders who share the same opinion and are pushing in a direction that uniquely differentiates each other, because you start to have people to see synchronicity. And like you basically say, Svit owns distribution, right, across a variety of use cases. Jack owns a lot of back-end partnerships with people who manage how payments are flowed or monetization happens with creators, right? I think this is exactly the type of ecosystem we want to cultivate. And, I think when I met Sviet, I talked to him and his team a little bit. And especially when I met Jack as well, I said, Aptos is we're a 2.5-year-old chain, 2.5 years old. Okay. We are still in the first act of where we will be. And what happens in the first act? The characters are set. The main characters are set, right? And I told, both of them are main characters, right? Alongside us. And we want to make sure that the folks we're investing in and bringing in, we go deep in that investment. It's not just, hey, you're here now and then we'll move on. It's like, no, we're going deep, because like us and like them, there's going to be unique business opportunities that emerge, especially as policy on the Western side gets clearer, especially with stable coins and market structure things, right? And I think there's going to be new, let's say, traditional VC capital that's going to invest in companies that utilize crypto in an interesting way that grows their business, right? Not crypto companies,
Mhm.
companies that utilize crypto to grow their business in interesting ways. And so we're in this moment here where I want to like, go deep with folks like Jack and Svia to just kind of like show the way of what a new ecosystem looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are there
like
any specific areas? Go ahead, Jade.
I was saying that, like Ash was saying, 2.5 years in the Web3. It's like 25 years in Web2. Like we have a joke.
It's forever, forever. Yes. Are there any specific areas that you think are maybe for Ash first, and then you two could jump in, that are like underperforming on Aptos, or that you would like to see grow more substantially in the coming year? And then kind of building off that, like the categories of like dApps or use cases that you think would be extremely valuable within the ecosystem that's not necessarily like massive yet. Kind of like two of the same category.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. So one, I mentioned where we started earlier this year, which was really kind of, DeFi whatever point oh, right? But the beginning stage for an immature ecosystem in early L1 to have footing to be able to work with amazing founders and companies like Jack and Svit, right? I think there is going to be another level we jump with the bringing on of Decibel, which is essentially the exchange that's being incubated by Aptos Labs, right? And why that is interesting is because Aptos, as I mentioned before, our unique edge is being so fast, right, and so efficient that any app running on Aptos is going to have a one-to-one um, likeness to a Web2 experience with all the benefits of Web3, right? Transparency, self-sovereignty, all these things, right? Permissionless networks, and I think an exchange is a great beneficiary of technology like that. So with Decibel coming on, we get to now build a DeFi ecosystem on top of that centralized liquidity, on top of that amazing access point to trade, right? So you're going to see a whole new DeFi ecosystem that of companies that have to do less work to manage such significant pools of capital themselves, which I know is stressful, security audit, and more work on just attracting new users through diversified product experiences. So that's we published a blog post a while ago on the cool things that you'll be able to build on top of that. That's one. Two is Shelby, which is the project that's being incubated with Jump Crypto. Now, speaking about it on the surface, how do you describe it? Oh, well, it's decentralized cloud, right? You can basically do whatever you want with things like AWS, but with the decentralized cloud, which gives you control. There's no single point of failure like we've seen in the past 2 months when AWS or Azure goes down, right? Like all of the top four crypto apps, social apps go down. But you could start adding Web3 incentives to applications that traditionally have sat on the sideline from crypto for the past 4 years. I'm thinking of things like traditional media and entertainment, AI companies, right? And so there's going to be, from my opinion and perspective, a completely new type of ecosystem that probably looks very similar to Sviat and Jack across a variety of verticals that build on top of Shelby and Aptos, right? And then I think the third thing for us is we're seeing a lot, I think the wallet is in kind of a transition phase of what it is, right? So you see some companies, a wallet is a social app. We're going to try to replace Facebook Messenger, or like try to get everyone to do stuff in here. I don't know if that's going to work because social media is pretty good itself. Then you have wallets that are kind of like, yeah, we're just here to trade all your shit coins and host all your stuff. But you're seeing wallets kind of basically say, actually, we're the best foundation for a neobank. We're actually like, we control that end user experience, right? To actually disrupt the banking system, right? Maybe we need to do a couple
Mhm.
deals here and there, but like we can actually manage this and get a lot of people who don't traditionally have banks just using our app. And so that's an area where I'm really keen to like bring on maybe a super application for Aptos. And we're working with some great teams like Daya, which we just kind of had the privilege to work with. They came out of the Alliance DAO Accelerator. and a couple other things as well. So yeah, those would be the three areas.
Hmm. Yeah. Jack and Sweet, what about for you two?
I would echo
For
the wall.
me,
Oh, go ahead.
yes,
Sorry.
so Jeff, go ahead, go ahead. It's okay.
No, I was gonna say I would echo the wallet part of it. Like, I bank with Citi, and like my terminal barely ever works, and I want to bang my computer, and so I actually think that wallet do already a pretty good job in terms of just like functionality. But I've always agreed, like to Ash's point. Like I remember when we were first talking about NFTs that and maybe ticketing is also a good segue here too. Is that like when you gave someone a token and you put that in their wallet, that token became a relationship with that consumer moving forward, and you can constantly update it, you can constantly airdrop them stuff, right? But in other words, for marketers and brands, like the idea that the token can move, like be a moving relationship with your end consumer, was such an amazing thought, right? But then no one really thought about, well, where does that token sit? I used to use like OpenSea all the time to take a look at my NFTs and not my MetaMask, right? And so the interfaces, I think I agree with Ash, is a moving target for a lot of people. And the wallet has so many use cases. Is it a relationship with your consumer through an NFT? Is it a place where you store money? And because it has so many facets, like it becomes a situation where it has a lack of identity, right? And so I think the people who've decided to be meaningful with their UI experience from a wallet point of view have made massive strides. And so, like, to that point with creators, maybe bring it back to what we do, is like I think ease of payment directly from the wallet into applied use cases, right? On the same way we're seeing with stable coins, that there's basically a stable coin for everything, right? Could your wallet adapt, change, and can the interface be dependent on what you do with it, right? Almost like an app store for your wallet, right? Which would be really interesting, in my opinion, at least. So I definitely think that we've always thought of the token or tokens as a relationship with the person that's holding it, but we've never really asked ourselves of where they're holding it and how that should be updated. So I would love to see Aptos dive into that even more, and I would love to bring that particularly to creators, because I think they would be a great use case for a really interesting wallet. So yeah, echoing that.
Yeah, for me, it's most important it's wallets, but also we have started already with Aptos to work with the Tapped team of the Tapped to work, let's say, over digital passes. It's like it will be the digital pass, but it's also for the ticketing. It's also your credit card, debit card, off ramping, on ramping your money, and somehow with Apple wallet you can use anywhere that you want in the festivals and the concert or the Comic-Con, whatever. This will be next level. But also what maybe I will missing, and maybe that will be the next level also for Aptos, is like because we are very working with a real world. This is on ramping, off ramping solution globally. It will be one of priority for us, because somehow many organizers, many venues, specifically from Asia, Middle East, and this solution need to be very spread it worldwide. And would be super cool. And the third one, I think it's user experience. Like it will be by the click, needed to be understandable that you're not using the crypto and that you're created directly the Aptos wallet, and it's seamless without any gas fees to put something and so on. This will be the next level, because anybody will be happy that it's receiving a stable coin, let's say.
Yeah. How do you guys think about growth strategies in today's market compared to maybe previous ones, whether it's targeting like Web3 users, mainstream audiences, or some other category like institutions or something else? Maybe that applies to Ash and not you two, but I'm
Well, I
giving you
think
guys a few different buckets. Yeah.
no, I think these two guys are going to answer the question way better because they run companies. I run, we work at a foundation which we like to help work with companies, right, that
Right.
go and then scale. But if I could speak a little bit around how we think about growth from that vantage point, I think the only way you should look at it is your chain being used for market resistant use cases or not? And like at a high proportion, right? What I mean by that is you need to make sure that um, like the market is not completely moving up and down like your destiny, right? Depending on what happens, whether it be a black swan or a self foul. And I think stable coins are a great opportunity, right? That they're kind of like the great unifying factor, which is we see monthly stablecoin volume stay pretty consistent and even grow, right? Even in these markets, right? Whereas trading, right, or like daily active addresses, trading coins, that's going down, right? So it's been going down. So I think for us, like I think about user growth as how much can you drive real world utility for your chain that is majority market resistant in crypto. And so you can like break, but you can break that down by like, here's how we think of users, here's like how much like activity per user we want to see in terms of stablecoin volume. Here's our monthly stablecoin volume. So that's like one area I think about. The second area I think about is how well are we doing in terms of onboarding companies that are actually going to drive real world adoption of blockchains and crypto writ large. And the second metric we look at is app revenues, right? So because essentially, like I'm a big believer that apps should be eating the majority of the value. Apps should be bigger than the chain itself, and I think we're coming up to a point where we're actually going to start seeing that. I think we're already starting to see that. I believe that. I want apps on Aptos to be bigger than Aptos, right? And we look at revenue as a marker or an indicator of whether this company is solving a real problem and getting their customers or users to pay for it in some way. That is the best indicator of whether you are on the right path. It aligns us, it aligns you, it aligns your investors, it aligns your consumers, right? And so I think like that's a secondary metric we look at, and that's where I'm like so excited, bringing back to the beginning of like we're actually like top 10 across all chains. And I think a few projects are still yet to report their on-chain revenue in terms of app revenues. That's an amazing, you know what I mean, like indicator. And as like someone who works on behalf of the ecosystem, I value that very much. Like I want to keep pushing that very much. But if you're talking about real customer acquisition and scaling to millions of billions, you gotta ask these guys the question.
All right, you guys have to answer my question then. How do you think about growth strategies in today's market?
We personally, like Aruna, we are going more to the Web2 users first because let's be honestly, 90% of the users globally are in the Web2. But when you are onboarding Web2 users, directly go into Web3. And we honestly started to onboard more government level. That meaning, for example, in the March, we will have a first food festival that will have over 130,000 of the people. And it's powered by the Dubai government, by the tourism Department of Tourism. I think so. It's the correct name.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's it's very long ones. And we mostly started to targeting them because their distribution is much more easy. Then they also recommend to another organizers because everything gets organized in the Middle East, for example, to be specifically like if you are recommended, better to use this solution than another. Also, it's the same in Hong Kong. We'll be proud like to announce that next year we'll be selling the ticketing for the Comic Con in the Hong Kong, and it's the same. It's recommended by the government and so on. And next year we will focus there, and we will see how we also can extend in another direction, like to be more easy.
Yeah.
Is the question how to market in Web3, or is it mainly like how we go to market?
I think the growth strategies today compared to maybe previous cycles or even quarters. Also, Jack, I know you were called a marketing guru to me. So you have a big shoe to fill right now on the marketing gap right now in Web3 and growth strategies and et cetera. Like, I guess, like, what are you guys getting right? Kind of building off what Sweet said and Ash, and then what are people kind of getting wrong on this side?
Again, I would say, okay, to try to answer both what we do and then also, I don't know how much of a marketing guru I am, but then also on the Web3 side, I have a background in advertising mainly in marketing, so maybe that's where that comes from. But I I've always take a look at um, like how agencies actually market themselves. So like I'll give a this is might be a total side tangent, but like for example, there's a really famous company called Wyden and Kennedy. For people who know advertising really well, you know who Wyden and Kennedy is. Wyden and Kennedy basically had one client their entire life, and everyone wanted to work with them. And who was that client? It was Nike. It's because they came up with
Yeah.
"Just Do It," right? And
Yeah.
so I think I actually see chains very much so as similar to agencies because the way to market in Web3 is use case driven, right? Um, every single day we see another concept. Right now, I'm seeing perpetual everything. That's like the new thing I see online, right? And the goal of the chain is to always be on top of the narrative, and then more importantly, always drive to interesting use cases, right? And so I think in the agency world, we always say you're only as good as your last work, and I think that's the same for chains. Is you're only as good as your last work, which is usually sadly for me the projects that you're bringing up. So there's a lot of pressure on me and Sven to deliver, of course. But I think that's really the key to Web3 marketing is only you're only as good as your last work, and for chains that's the projects that they're bringing on. And so I think that goes back to what I was saying is Aptos is extremely intentional with the people that they want to bring on. They are put in a problem where they're trying to scale just like any other chain, but they also have to have great relationships with the people building on them, which is counterintuitive, but also, at least from what I've experienced, and Ash is right, my other co-founder and partner is actually in the office right now, that Aptos has been nothing but a home for us and really supportive. So I think they're doing everything right from a Web3 marketing point of view. And hopefully some of these bets, including Sven and I, mature to a place where, the case study becomes a situation to create massive on-chain growth, because as we know, we can rely on crypto people to FOMO into a category when it becomes really hype. So hopefully we create those categories ultimately for Aptos. To answer on the marketing side for us, 90% of it is education, actually, weirdly enough. You do use the word debt or credit, people get scared really quickly. But in reality, I was explaining this to someone the other day. I spent most of my career in startup world where we take venture money to accelerate our businesses, right? And that's because we are
Hmm.
not cash generating businesses for most of the time for a long period of time, right? But in the creator space, particularly music and actually every category that we're in, they're cash generating businesses, right? So they should be operating in the space of debt and credit, because they have the cash flow to pay it down without giving equity in their existing product or music or intellectual property, right? And so for a lot of people, take the music industry where you get signed to a pub deal where then all of a sudden you're given 50K, and then the publishing company now owns your publishing rights for 10 years. Crazy, horrible deal. But ultimately for the artist, they think, wow, I just got 50K and I don't have to do anything other than just continue to do what I do, right? And that's probably our biggest issue is making sure people understand that, hey, look, you can pull money out of your existing revenues to build your own equity, your own IP, without giving anything up to anyone else. And that's really the narrative that we're trying to solve for, and hopefully through material that we're putting out there, conversations that we're having, and all the marketing that will be ramping up doing, hopefully we can change that narrative, because ultimately I think if creators think that way, there's a compounding effect to that, in terms of the equity and really what they're building on their side. So yeah, I hope that answers both questions.
Yeah.
One thing on the topic of marketing, right? Building off what Jack said. Um, I think the majority of software marketing is moving actually towards how Web3 instinctually behaves, which is attention is the product. Quite possibly it comes before your actual product. I think we're seeing that, right? And I think crypto has always been at the cutting edge, right? You see like all these VCs have podcasts and media arms, and now all these companies have podcasts and media. Why? Because they realize attention is the product, right? And so I think like crypto has always been good at that. And I'm excited actually to see now that there's institutional interest and Web2 interest and like real world utilization, like them ask or understand who the best Web3 marketers are to learn from them. Secondarily, one thing that pops into my mind when Jack talks about what their company can actually do for creators, creators have always been left out of platform level valuations based on the revenue they generate. What I mean by that is if you're a creator and you're getting $100 million ARR through some combination of ads and subscription across digital platforms, let's say an investor, what would they value at? They would value at $100 million. If you were a software company doing 100 million ARR, what would an investor value you at? 10x, 20x. And so why is that the case? Because these creators are not able to extend themselves, right? Or to take some of that revenue and put it into the forward thinking part of their business and actually start to create this halo platform value. So from a marketing perspective, I like to say to Jack, like, and I maybe have said this, is like what they're doing is actually helping creators get software platform valuations. Seriously, that's what they're doing. You know what I mean? And I think that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. Maybe to round things out, a question I have for you guys, and you could say Runa or Creatorify, or we could kind of say maybe more broadly. But I know Ash before was saying he was hoping that, an app built on Aptos would be bigger than Aptos itself, right? And so what would a killer app kind of look like that would put Aptos on the mainstream map or, the consumer side of everything in 2026? Give us like a good prediction.
You want me to go?
Sure. And then I mean, like for Svi and Jack, like you guys could bet on yourself, but like what's gonna
It's
bring you guys
them.
there?
It's
Yeah.
them.
Okay, then what's gonna bring you guys
I
there?
want to decide it's us, that's all.
Yeah, all right. Mic drop, close it, end the stream. No. Yeah. Okay. So what do you think is gonna bring it there then?
It's a good
The
question.
adoptions. Yeah, I think so. Adoption will be, from my side, it will be adoption, and this will be the key. From my side, it's like somehow if like Ash is saying, the software is growing up and user database is growing up and they're using every day and nobody knows what is in behind. This is adoption, and this is the key of a successful story for a software company, or a hardware company, software and hardware, both.
I think just to add to Sviet's point, I think there's certainly a tons of ideas on what I think would be a great consumer application. By the way, I think social media is pretty good as it is. And I think like monolithic social media apps are not going to persist. I think people are going to customize their own software experiences based on their needs, and it's going to look different for everyone. But I think what's going to become bigger than Aptos very soon, in addition to what these guys are focusing on, but based on what they've said, is the B2B nature of what crypto can solve. You understand? Like, so, you know what I mean? Like what Sviet just talked about, which is, him being integrated with all these stakeholders. The people that have the biggest problems aren't the fans, aren't the users. It's the suppliers. It's the people
It's
who need liquidity.
B2B2C, exactly.
Same with Jack. The people who have the biggest problems aren't the fans of creators. They get inundated with content every day, every day.
Yeah.
It's the creators who chop up or who aren't able to pay their rent the next month. Payroll, same thing, right? Like, I think that's the thing, from my opinion, that we're uniquely set up. And I think that will be the thing that will eventually be bigger than Aptos.
All right. Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you to everyone for listening in. I think we got a couple thousand people, so not bad for a Tuesday. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
This was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good one. Bye.
Talk soon. Bye.